do you think this was a step up from Beau is Afraid?
I liked it better. I did. I still think the first hour of Beau is Afraid is good. I still think that's good. I don't think it's a rewatchable movie. I've not revisited it, and I don't plan on revisiting it for a while. Probably not until we do an Ari Aster, like when he makes he's only made 4 movies. When he makes 10 movies and we have to rank all 10, I'll do a rewatch of Ari Aster movies, and then I'll rewatch Beau is Afraid. But that's not a movie I will be revisiting on my own accord if I don't have to. This one, I also don't think I would rewatch it, like as in like on my own accord. But the second half of this movie rips. It's pretty. It's a thriller. I did not expect that. This movie, I don't know. I expected what it was in the first hour, the first hour and a half, I should say, and then the second half of this movie, mainly the third act. I was like, whoa, what is going on? And I loved it. So I love the movie? Maybe not. No. But I thought like maybe it was kind of getting crazy. And I did not sense this tone change whatsoever. Looking back on it, I could understand it more. Does it make sense in its entirety? Probably not. But yeah, I would say this is a step up, even though I don't think it's perfect.
I really like this movie. And I think I like this movie. I was going to ask you a pretty loaded question or like pretty obvious question, like why does this movie have such mixed reviews? I think it's because it's addressing 2020. And at the same time, I think it's the most accurate 2020 movie you could make. And I think it leans into how absurd of a time 2020 was. It attacks everything and it takes no side. That's why I really like this movie. I think obviously people that are reviewing these movies tend to lean more left. And this movie's not afraid to attack the left. It's not afraid to attack the right. If you are a moderate, I think you're most likely to think this movie was good because it's making fun of both sides so heavily. It almost felt like a balancing act, like a tipping of the scales. Like I have to attack here. I'm going to attack conspiracy theorists that are far right. I'm going to attack Antifa. I'm going to do the Black Lives Matter protesters. I'm going to look at I'm going to attack like police authority versus civilians. Like it seemed like Ari Aster just kind of did something that not a lot of directors do. And a lot of people want a perspective. They want okay, this is what you're saying. And here is just Ari Aster was saying what was happening in 2020 was freaking absurd. It was crazy. Like in terms of everything I'd mentioned previously, the social media spread of misinformation, and it shows like how it impacts or how it was influencing like small communities, and what were they thinking about it? And was it like something that they were processing or responding to? I don't want to say love, but I really like this movie. This is not Hereditary or Midsommar to me, but I think this is definitely a huge step up from Beau is Afraid. And it's mainly because of Ari Aster. I wouldn't say it's because of the star-studded cast. It's not because of Joaquin. It's not because of Emma Stone, Austin Butler, Pedro Pascal. Like so many great movie stars. But I didn't walk away saying, these are some kick-ass performances. I walked away saying, this was a fun movie because it understands that 2020 sucked and that it's just kind of fun to look back and make fun of how stupid and how freaking overreactive everybody was.
I think you summed it up perfectly. Like it's, I'm not even gonna try to tackle on it because I share very similar thoughts. I would just say it's very impressive for Ari Aster, someone that we know, more of a horror guy. You think Midsommar, again, psychological thriller there, horror, and then you have Hereditary, which is definitely more horror, and then you have Beau is Afraid, which I want to say horror, and I wouldn't say thriller, but it's kind of like it is daunting and scary,
Oh yeah.
and crazy. And then this is like, I think more, it's still everywhere, like a lot, like you said it, like it's tackling a lot of different things. But I do think it's more controlled than like a Beau is Afraid, which I think was very ambitious and literally animated at times and got out of hand pretty quickly and kind of, he lost control a bit, I think. Here, like you were in control the whole time. It's just like two different movies in one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And did it flow correctly? I just don't think it did. And I think you made a great point that I kind of want to follow up on though, because this is a huge takeaway for me. So Eddington, this movie, you have a big hotshot young director who's very like 4 movies, Hit rate, you could debate it, but you have this great cast to go along with it. You have one of your like actors in Joaquin Phoenix. You have one of the hottest, if not the hottest actor on the planet right now, Pedro Pascal. Arguably the greatest actor of our generation, Emma Stone's in this. Um, you have Austin Butler, one of the rising stars in Hollywood. Honestly, I don't think the cast, like, no one like put like in this cast. And when I watched this movie, it was like, wow, they were amazing in this. Like I thought Austin Butler had a good scene, and it was very limited screen time, so I'll kind of leave him out of this. But out of the other three names, Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone, Joaquin, I'm not saying any of them were bad. I'm just saying like they didn't blow me away. This was more about Ari Aster in the movie.
It was more about the it's evaluating the time period and making people look in the mirror and say, "How did you respond to this?" And if you fall in and like leaning heavy left or right, you are going to despise this movie. You know that like I see that. But if you're an everyday person and you see this, there are times like I was laughing. Obviously, I think it's one of the funniest movies of the year at the same time. But I also was finding times where I had a huge pit in my stomach where I was like, oh, so that's how it happens, you know, especially the Michael Ward character and what happens with him and his loyalty to the Joaquin Phoenix character, the sheriff, and what happens to his character. I felt so uneasy, but I'm like, that's how it looks like, not people screaming into a, you know, like basically spreading misinformation or like they're taking videos. People are interpreting things that are happening hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away. And like when it's right in front of you, what does it actually look like? That scene like made me feel so uneasy, you know? But I think that's kind of what Ari Aster was trying to do. But performance wise, I think everyone's cast so well in this movie, though. You know, like what Joaquin's doing, it's the guy who is, you know, so if like he's a guy who's ready to blow at any time, you know, when he is outside of his house. And when he's inside his house, he's like almost weaker. He's kind of afraid of his wife. He wants to please his wife. It kind of was like kind of what he did in Beau is Afraid when he entered the household. And then when he went outside the household, it was just it seemed like he was a ticking time bomb, you know, and then it comes to a head in multiple times going into the third act that leads to this violent western that ensues. But then like Austin Butler using how like appealing he is, like
Magnetic.
magnetic, seductive, like really good casting. And then Pedro Pascal as kind of the like clean shaven, clean resume for a politician looking to make everybody happy. And the guy who is like the internet daddy right now. It is perfectly casted. Emma Stone is a little different because like, wow, she does not look like a movie star. She doesn't want to be seen by people in this movie. That's the one that kind of was like, wow, she gets to actually do a performance here, but you don't get to see much of her, honestly. So I think the way they were positioned in this movie really well. But I think I wanted to transition to something that didn't work well for me. It sucks that every time we get a Pedro Pascal performance, like we don't get him for an entire movie, you know? And this is why Fantastic Four coming up like in on July 25th, it's gonna be a super important movie because we're gonna see him in this role for a long time. Like he's in Gladiator 2, but he doesn't make it to the end of Gladiator 2. He's in Eddington, and I'll just say he's not in the
He's
entire
limited.
movie. He's
Yeah.
limited, you know? And he's a materialist, but he is not Chris Evans. He's not the lead in the movie. It's like he's working with great directors and they're casting him, I think, in really putting him good positions, but he doesn't get to showcase is he a great actor as much as like in these small doses. You know what I'm saying? Like Austin Butler, I watched that scene, I'm like, wow, great actor. But that's where the movie sucked the most to me. Like I thought that when Austin Butler came in and you have the timidness of Joaquin and him getting walked on, and this guy's clearly banging his wife, you know, when I saw that scene and it's all of a sudden it's attacking like child pedophilia rings, I was like, okay, this movie's already doing so much politically and it's attacking the pandemic. And then we're going into like heavy conspiracy theorists there. That scene and that second act kind of took me out of it.
There's a
First and
lot.
third acts kicked ass, but I wanted to know like what you thought of like when Butler entered the movie. Like, did it work for you?
He has that movie star like I'm hooked when he
Okay.
enters the screen. So I'm locked in when he's on the screen. Um, like the videos and whatnot, sure, cult leader, yeah. But like you could see like when he was sitting at the table with Joaquin and Emma Stone, like again, like two of the greatest actors of their generation, like he belongs, you know, and he kind of like you were locked in on him over
Yeah.
them. He just has that star appeal, man, and he's a good actor. Like even at the end of that scene when he's like, "I'll go clean this," like the glass, his water glass when he barely drank out of it. Even that, I was like, he just has that it factor. Even these little minor things, you know.
Yeah. It's like the way if you're gonna play a cult leader, you got to be appealing to people, right? You have to be overly friendly. You have to seem overly interested in what they have to say, even if they're the most boring person of all time. Like Austin
Yes.
Butler actually nails that in this movie. It's like, I am fascinated. I do want to hear your story, but eventually you're going to ask me about my story. And that's what I'm going to tell you all about my ideals and what influences me to think the way I do. Like he is so good in that scene. I just thought we're doing a lot here. And if you're gonna go into this, it's got to be a bigger part of the movie. It's got to have more like Austin Butler because like if you see that scene and he's that good, you're like, I need more of him. But then you're just taking him away. Emma Stone, you don't really get her after this scene at all. And also when she leaves the movie, that's another like pit in your stomach type of moment where it's like what people are willing to do to win elections, to gain power, and how they weaponize social media. I was like, God damn, I feel queasy inside. That second act, kind of tough pill to swallow. But I think also performance wise, one of my favorite scenes, and third act is amazing. It becomes like No Country for Old Men, honestly. In that third act, it's amazing. And the first act I love because it's so funny, you know. Um, but a scene with Pedro Pascal I think really worked is that he's a guy who puts on this facade that he's the perfect image. But when he's one on one with Joaquin, his character announces that he's going to be running for mayor and they're standing in the middle of the street. It looks like a true Western, a showdown. Like if you go back 200 years, these guys have pistols on their waist, you know, ready to kind of fricking duel it out. But when Joaquin like sarcastically goes 6 feet and then Pedro Pascal gets right in his face, I was like, fuck yeah. Like that is, and the way the camera's shot, it's like lower on them. It's looking at them. It's like the empty street. The setting was perfect for like a modern day Western because it's like you got the mayor, you got the sheriff, and you got like an empty street. It's like perfect with a pandemic setting to have like that Western dramatic feel to it. That was one of my favorite scenes of the movie. I'm like, Pedro Pascal gets to cook a little bit, you know?
Yeah, you mentioned how it was shot in this western, like the cinematographer here, same cinematographer as Seven,
Sick.
so interesting there. And I thought it was shot well, particularly that third act was pretty cool, but also the first act, like you're saying, COVID western. I think it was capturing all the elements of the movie very well. Um, you also just mentioned Pedro Pascal there, and that's cook a little bit. Again, this is a movie, you mentioned it, like Materialists, even Last of Us, he was only in a couple episodes,
Yeah.
like, he's Gladiator 2, last November, like, he hasn't like, in these roles, he hasn't had a lot of screen time, and if you look back at his filmography, he's never led anything. Like, The Mandalorian, you could say yes, but he's in a freaking helmet the entire time. Like, Fantastic Four is big for him because he hasn't really cooked, in my opinion, anytime he's on the screen. Like, he's just, like, so beloved, and we just, like, say, "Oh, yes," like, Pedro Pascal, we root for that guy, we love him, but it's like, shit, like, we actually haven't seen him act for, like, 2 hours in a row.
I couldn't agree more. Pedro Pascal is cast in all of these like A24 movies recently. You talked about Materialist, Eddington now. I think he's there for box office. And he's not there to showcase how good of an actor he is. I think he is good. I think he's really great in a lot of The Last of Us. I think he has shades of really good acting in this movie,
Yes, I
but this
agree.
movie's not about the acting necessarily. It's about like all the circumstances around 2020, you know, and what Ari Aster decides to put in this movie or cram into this movie. But I Pedro Pascal is just like guaranteed people will go see you, but it's because of not necessarily because you're the greatest actor. So that's why Fantastic Four, you're leading the Fantastic Four. You're potentially the lead, or at least leading the Avengers or the Fantastic Four in Avengers Doomsday. Then you have Secret Wars coming up after that. Like you already have such a presence in people's lives on your phones or on screen. And now you're finally going to be a leading man. And there's going to be a test, really. Are people ready for this much Pedro Pascal? And I've seen the early reviews of Fantastic Four, you know, early reactions. I've seen tweets. No one is really saying Pedro Pascal is the man, you know? and it's mainly because they say the cast is good, but it's like Vanessa Kirby's amazing, Joseph Quinn's amazing. Like Pedro Pascal is always a part of ensembles, but he's never the best part of an ensemble, which is interesting. It's interesting because he's everywhere right now, everywhere.
Yeah, but yeah, it is really interesting. We'll see. I agree with you. I think he's a good actor. I just don't think we've ever seen him in a
Is he more of a
long.
movie star than a great actor? That's what
I would say
what
yeah.
he is.
As of right now, yes, he's more of a movie star than a great actor. But I do think he has it in him to become a great actor. We just haven't seen
Mhm.
like literally like if you go down to filmography, dude, he is not a lead in anything. So we just mentioned like this Materials, Last of Us is a show, so exclude that. Gladiator 2, Driveway Dolls. Uh, let's keep going. The Mandalorian show, um, Book of Boba Fett cameo, Wonder Woman 1984. Right, he's the villain in that. Uh, Triple Frontier.
Ensemble.
Again, like he's a supporting character. If Beale Street Could Talk, supporting. Equalizer 2, villain. Kingsman, villain, but also like small, right? The Great Wall, supporting. He's never the lead, so like that's why Fantastic Four is so big. And like he's in the Mandalorian, he's in all these like great things, right? And he's a big star, and he's a big on the internet. But can he become a good actor? It's the Vinny Chase test, and I think he has promise, and we believe in him. Other people maybe not, but that's why Fantastic Four, even though it's a superhero movie, it is big for him because it's more than just a movie star.
He also has one of the great comedic moments of this movie, and it's a great needle drop. The Katy Perry firework is so it's like a scene where it's gonna be a showdown once again between Joaquin Sheriff and Pascal's mayor, or the incumbent who's running for mayor again. Uh, to have what preceded that event of him walking into, like, basically it seemed like a fundraiser of some kind, maybe for the mayoral campaign, uh, after a very controversial, social media post from the Joaquin character, and to have that tenseness, between them, that tension, I should say, and then to have like it ratcheted up by the raising the volume of the song Firework, because you feel like a firework is about to burst, and then it leads to some things happening later on in the movie. But I think that was one of the funny moments of the movie. Ricky Flex, did you find this movie funny?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was more uncomfortable than funny for the most part, on purpose. And I think Ari Aster, like, you think Bo is afraid, like that's literally the definition uncomfortable, and here, like, it is as well, and it makes you feel awkward. Um, like you said, that scene with the firework and the noise complaint, like unbelievably awkward, and like the why are you doing this, like raising your hands up, like oh my god, like how could you be doing that? Yeah, in the social media post, what are you saying? Like that is what I feel more than funny, but like I think like this is more of a black comedy than a comedy.
Yeah.
And I thought they tackled it well for a subject matter like this. I think for like a movie, and I don't think it was too soon. I know that's like a debate on social media, like oh, is this movie coming too soon of COVID? I think it was actually kind of like the perfect time because like I was like watching the movie and I was like, oh, it's close enough to 2020 where it's like, oh, it was that crazy back then, but then we're also far enough where I'm not too sensitive about it or anything. And I think the way they did the black comedy element here, it's like, and how like they kind of tackled both sides, they balanced it out pretty damn well, or he did, Ari Aster.
I think it's something where if you weren't tapped into either side politically and you look at this movie, you're like, it's aged well because, I mean, you're seeing how crazy that time was, especially on social media. But if you were a person that was posting a lot, and you were a person that was maybe on one side of the aisle, and you were hard on that side of the aisle, maybe you aren't as passionate now, you kind of reflect a little bit, and you might be like automatically against this movie. You might feel a certain way about it. If you were someone who was anti-mask and you're watching this movie, you might feel a certain way. If you're someone who posted a black box on Instagram, like, you might feel a certain way after watching this movie. But if you are down the aisle and you just look left and right and you're laughing, you're laughing, and that's why the character and like these people that are protesting, feeling things that maybe aren't even relevant to their town. Like, they're talking and protesting like Black Lives Matter in this movie in this small town, and they're talking about police brutality, and there's 3 cops in the entire town, and to have that, I think a really effective character was the homeless guy. So like
Yes.
that homeless guy, when he enters the protest, and this guy's wanders through the town. They don't know how to deal with the homelessness issue in the town, and these people are protesting a thing that's not even really. They might be it's relevant to the country, but to them in their town, like what are you trying to say within the town, I guess, and to have like this wandering homeless guy who's been around for days at this point go into the middle of the fray, and the police authorities and the authorities can't break up the protest, but this guy does just by walking through it because he's disgusting and he's displaced. They can't take care of the problem that's right in front of them. You care about these things. People are shouting in their phones. They're in states that are far away from where things are actually happening, but you have the immediate issue right in front of you and you don't know how to handle that. To me, that was hilarious. It's
Yeah,
just,
it was a good way to tackle that. I thought it was
yeah,
very clever, and
yeah.
especially during this time period where he's the only guy walking the streets, and and you can't fix it,
Mhm.
and they
One
can't
guy.
fix anything.
And they figure out that they can't figure it out. They literally can't figure it out, and it leads to an insane third act, and it leads to the eruption of the Joe Cross character, Joaquin. And I think the first act also in terms of comedy, they have the it has I think it talks about like white kids being indoctrinated by social media and then like joining like Black Lives Matter and like kind of also doing it because it's a social pressure to do it and to think a certain way, to post something and to like a message and to support something, even if you're sure you don't believe in it, but like this girl you like thinks this way. So you have to think this way and say these things. I think it makes you understand like kids sometimes are just kind of pressured into doing stuff. They just to think a certain way politically. And I think social media's influence, the echo chambers that they're involved in. I think it was just fun, like really funny when the character Brian, white kid,
Yes,
and he's talking at dinner table and he's talking about being anti-white, to his
you're
parents
white.
in a New Mexico
That was
town.
such a good
And he's
line.
like, "You're white. Are you?" Like it's just like they just like it shows like the old person who is not on social media or not as dialed in to the person who is a young high schooler that is exposed to so much social media and is influenced what they think along with their friends. I thought it was just that's the funniest way you could have done it. So I think that's just a part in that part of that kid who goes from being anti-white to then being basically the Kyle Rittenhouse
Yeah,
of this movie at the end.
it was
I was
funny.
like, this is perfect. This is the age of influencer, this a political influencing. You couldn't have picked a funnier ending for that character. It was like Ari Aster, very underratedly funny guy.
That was the like laugh out loud funniest moment was at the dinner table, and then that montage at the end with that character. Those were the funniest moments in this movie, and I think that third act very serious, very thrilling. We kind of needed that because it was so different than the first act where it's like the 6 feet line, like you said. Like we had a bunch of like COVID, Black Lives Matters. Like we had a bunch of funny stuff in the first act. That kid as well, like saying like basically getting peer pressure to join this movement. And in the second act, it got uncomfortably serious.
Yeah.
And we kind of were
Huge
missing some of
difference.
that black comedy that we missed in the first act. In the third act, we literally was just like boom, 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 all serious but thrilling. And then it's just like that montage. It's like that's what we needed there. Like something funny to kind of like end this whole black comedy thriller, weird kind of western.
And I didn't even have someone I was pulling for in the end. Uh all the characters are despicable for the most part.
I'll
I think
say this: I was rooting for Joaquin Phoenix to die.
yeah, it's just
I
like
was.
obviously terrible guy, and then you are thinking Pedro Pascal, he's vindicated in one part of this movie, but also he is kind of a fake. He's like a disgusting politician at the same time, even for a small town mayor.
I thought they were gonna go deeper into that. I didn't think they went deep enough, like with the data centers and whatnot, because that's again another
I
part
agree
of
with
the show.
that. The
They did
AI
not
part.
go deep enough with that because they kept hinting at it, and they talk about it a lot in this press tour on their press tour right now in the promo. Sorry, Aster, and like there are a lot of implications, specifically in New Mexico. I think it was very clever they did that because a lot of data centers being built there in real life. That obviously shown in this movie, and like at the end, then they put in this whole spectacle at the end, and no spoilers. It's just like with this data center, I'm like we did not tackle this during the movie. And that's kind of with the lack of screen time with Pedro Pascal and lack of like kind of character development with his character. The only times we ever saw him is when he was either in a political ad or with Joaquin Phoenix about COVID or whatnot, or talking to his son saying like, "Don't go out with more than Brian," you know, like
But he's only telling him to act a certain way because he's the mayor and he has to look a certain way, you know?
exactly. So I thought that
So
we could have had more.
I agree with that. That was very, and it leads to the end of the movie. And Deidre O'Connell's, I think, really good in this movie.
She literally plays what she did in The Penguin, the mom.
Yes, but yes, except I mean, the end of the movie is kind of the opposite of the end of the Penguin.
Yes,
Like
which again also
almost.
crazy.
I mean that in a literal sense, not even just a character sense. I mean a literal sense, like physically where she is at the end of this movie. Also hilarious ending when Joaquin is in the
Yes.
bed, then she's there, and then the other guy hops in. Very funny, and I like how we did this. Pretty much non-spoiler. Pretty much
Yeah.
non-spoiler. You know, maybe minor spoilers a little bit, but I think overall pretty good. And there's a part also, you know, Ari Aster is kind of like messing with you where at the end of this movie, you haven't seen Emma Stone in a while. You're like, it's Emma Stone. It's a 2-time Oscar winner. Like, she's going to come back in this movie, right? And there's a part where Joaquin in the third act enters his home and he thinks it's her. And I think it's her. The audience thinks it's Emma Stone. And as he approaches, it becomes Deidre O'Connell. And then I was like, that's like you're messing with what audiences want to see, you know, and you're messing with lighting and you're messing with camera work there. I'm like, damn, like you got me. That was pretty good. And then also, I think we haven't talked enough about the last part of this movie that it did for me feel like the most Western part of it was like empty town, guy on the run, shootout. It was No Country for Old Men. I felt like I was watching Josh Brolin getting hunted by Bardem. And in terms of this, Antifa enters the fray, and it was like also just like, okay, people are going to be upset by this when like Antifa enters the fray.
Wild move by Ari Aster to do that.
And this is what I'm saying. Like, this guy didn't give a fuck when he was making this movie. He's just like, this is absurd. In a way, it's kind of funny. It's, I think that was a crazy move, but it led to like, in the most tense moment of the movie where Joaquin is circling and the camera's like on his shoulder and it's like we're like a helicopter like whirling around and you just don't know what's gonna happen. And like you want Joaquin to not make it out, but then you kind of do want him to make it out. The only character I really rooted for in this movie, by the way, was Michael Ward, which
Same.
and at the same time, he supports Joe Cross. So you also want to be like, I don't really want to root for him, but he's the only guy that you root for because that's the pit in the stomach moment where you can't have this happen. You don't think this happens in your town. All of a sudden, you are in that circumstance. Trying to go without spoilers, but he was the guy. I actually liked him a lot in this movie, by the way. I want to see more of him. The other guy, is he in Yellowstone? The other guy in the sheriff's department?
Yes. Oh man, what's his name? Luke Grimes.
It sounds right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. So Michael Ward, good. Someone I want to see what else he's going to be in.
Yeah, because like he was in Empire of Light, you know.
I think he won a Tony.
I think he's won one too. Yeah. I know he's in the Old Guard. But I don't know anything he's got coming up. But yeah, he's got. I like him. I think he could be in more stuff.
Super likable.
Yeah, and again, you're rooting for him because of the circumstances and also like of the setting, and then the circumstances with a specific character, not just COVID and what's going on, Black Lives Matter and whatnot, but also him specifically, what happens to him, and you're just like crap, Mike, oh no. But other than that, everyone else's movie you hate pretty much.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's right. That you shouldn't be really rooting for anybody in this movie because it's 2020. You know, it's like you're not really taking if you're like you're taking aside these people are just bad people whether you look left or right. You know, that's the part of it. Like it being so political but not political at the same time is I think one of the best elements of this movie. You know,
Yeah.
Scores. What do you give Eddington?
This has been a pretty good movie year. I would say Friendship is still the best comedy. If we like put this in a comedy thing, as in funniest movies, I still say Friendship is funnier. But this is one of the funnier movies of the year, and I'll lack in a year where we're lacking comedies. I'll go 71.
Okay.
71 for me.
77. 77.